Hello, and welcome to another episode of Positive Parenting with Astrology. I am your host and resident Gemini, Maria Riegger. So, today we are talking about how to parent your Aquarius child as a Pisces mom or a Pisces dad. Now, a while ago, I did a video on the reverse, how to parent your Pisces child as an Aquarius parent. I did that video with astrologer and parenting coach Dominique Caramillo. That the link to that video is down below if that is the combination you're looking for. This one is about how to parent your Aquarius child as a Pisces parent. It recently got cold here in the DC area, so I'm sniffling. Chronic sinus suffer. Of course, I live in my upper three chakras as a Gemini, so apologies for that. But I will not let that detract us from going over this content today. So first of all, I'm going to give you a high-level overview of Aquarius energy, followed by Pisces energy, and then I'm going to get into the more details about the dynamic and how you, the Pisces parent, can support your Aquarius child. Now, Aquarius approaches the world very differently from Pisces. Aquarius's first line reaction is to analyze. They observe the world from a place of clinical detachment. They're very good at embracing what I call the observer self, which is going to be the subject of some courses that I have in my school community. With the link to that is down below. But they're very good at embracing that observer self technique, that being more detached and looking at things from a place of distance. So they're very good at that, much better than water sign people like Pisces. Pisces often get too closely involved with something. It's harder for them to see things from a more detached observer role. And the nature of air is to cover a lot of different subjects, but not necessarily in a detailed way. So Aquarius people, they have a lot of interests. They have their hand in a lot of things, but they don't necessarily delve too deeply into any one subject. Although I will note that as fixed air, that trait is not as profound as like Gemini, which is mutable air. Gemini people have a breadth of knowledge about many different things and tend not to go too in depth in any one subject. Aquarius is like that too, but I think they have the capacity to go deeper on a subject because of the fixed nature of the sign. Now, Aquarius is also a scattered energy. It's air, and like air, which tends to go around obstacles, air people typically don't like confrontation. They're not comfortable with direct confrontation. That is certainly true of Libra and Gemini. They tend to be conflict avoidant. Aquarius is like that too, although I have observed multiple times the pattern that Aquarius people tend to be more comfortable with direct confrontation than Gemini and Libra people. And I attribute that to a couple things. One, it's fixed air, right? Fixed quality. But the other thing is, according to traditional astrology, Aquarius was co-ruled by Uranus and Saturn. And if you follow astrologer Michael Bryan, who I study under, his position is that Aquarius is ruled by Saturn even today, because he focuses on the 7 planets in the Chaldean order. So in his position is that Aquarius is ruled by Saturn. Now, Saturn is an energy, a planet that is very comfortable with confrontation. So for those reasons, I think Aquarius is better at direct confrontation and communication than the other air signs. I actually did a video on that subject. That link is down below because I get a lot of questions from parents of Aquarius kids about that trait, that my kid seems more conservative than I considered an Aquarius to be. It doesn't really fit with my concept or my idea of Aquarian energy. They seem to be, for example, more confrontational, more conservative in how they dress. There are reasons for that, and I tackle those reasons in that video on Aquarius energy, on that particular trait of Aquarius. So that link is down below as well. So an important thing to realize about Aquarius, because this is, as we'll talk about in more detail in a second, this is something that's very different from Pisces energy. Aquarius is often said to be an individualistic sign. It is, but it is not a loner sign. So according to astrologer Robert Hand, Aquarius people need to be able to fit into the group. They part of their mission is to figure out how they fit into the group, what they can contribute to society, how they can show up in society, and at the same time, how to individuate, how to protect their own identity. And it's interesting that I'm bringing this up because I recently interviewed an evolutionary astrologer. And if you follow evolutionary astrology, which was first put forward by Jeffrey Wolf Green, one of the tenets is that the mission of the individual, of the chart holder, is to figure out it's this conflict between individuating and returning to source, this conflict between protecting your own identity and figuring out how you can be part of society and how you can return to source. So it's very interesting. So I say all that to demonstrate that Aquarius people, while they like to be different and they like to be to assert their individualism and their self-identity, it's always in relation to the group. It is not in a vacuum. It is not a loner sign. So that is one reason why Aquarius people tend to be very social, because they are figuring out how they can be part of society, how they can be part of the group. Aquarius people are also very open-minded, tend to be very open-minded and accepting of people, but they also have very strong core beliefs. Again, I attribute that to the fixed nature of the energy. Now, we're going to talk about general traits of Pisces. Pisces is mutable water. It is a more self-contained energy. Pisces people tend to be more introverted. It is not an outwardly expressive energy. So while Aquarius is compelled to communicate and belong to society, Pisces energy is more self-contained. Pisces people feel very deeply and often have difficulty articulating what they are feeling, the emotions they are experiencing. If you are a Pisces parent who has that issue, then that you may need to do some reparenting work. You may need to figure out what it is that or why it is that you are having trouble identifying and accepting your feelings, because your feelings don't have to make sense. We just feel, right? So it's not as helpful to kind of intellectualize the feelings and explain them away or repress them. It is more helpful to you, the Pisces parent, to accept and identify those feelings and name them, engage in that emotion labeling that I talk about, so that you can work through them. You don't want to hold on to them. So my point is, if you're a Pisces parent who has that work to do, think about that. That is something I can certainly help you with if you want to talk more about that. That is something I help parents with, to formulate the protocols, specific protocols that will help you and your individual situation to change those patterns, whether it's self-sabotage or emotional repression or poor boundaries, which is almost always an issue with Pisces people, unless they had really, really good parents who taught them how to have boundaries for themselves. Boundaries always seems to come up with water sign people and Pisces in general. But those are all areas that I can help you with, where we can develop individual protocols for you. Pisces is about collective healing. It is the sign that is best able to tap into what Carl Jung calls the collective unconscious. It is like the healer. That's the archetype, one of the archetypes of Pisces. But Pisces also absorbs a lot of energy. It is a sign that needs to figure out how to protect its own energy, because you risk absorbing the energy of everybody around you, and that leads to burnout. And if you're a Pisces parent, you need to be very careful about that, about protecting your own energy so that you have more energy for yourself and your family. Pisces people often feel cribbed and confined by what I call like the material plane of existence. It's not an ego-oriented sign. It's a sign that's always looking for meaning beyond the material. So think about that. If you're a Pisces parent and you don't necessarily identify with other parents, that's okay. And I'm not surprised by that, because you probably have other concerns. You may be less concerned about how your kid does in school and their grades, and more concerned with their mental health, with giving them the experiences, with giving them the tools that they can use to have a more fulfilling life themselves. And that's wonderful. And I love that. And I love those more soul oriented parents who are thinking about those things for their kids, not just how can my kid achieve, or how can my kid pursue more easily pursue these worldly material goals. What can I do to give my kid the tools that they can, so that they can find fulfillment for themselves in their own journey? How can I support them? And I get that question a lot from parents. Here's my kid's chart, how can I support them? And I love that question. I love it. So if you have questions about that, I'm happy to walk you through it. But yeah, Pisces parents are great at that. They are great at helping the kids, supporting the kids, not just to navigate life, but in supporting the kids and how they can find their own fulfillment on their own journey. But to do that, Pisces has to protect its own energy. So the first thing I want to talk about regarding this dynamic is that your Aquarius child is well poised to be your teacher. If you believe that Aquarius is ruled by Saturn, or at least co-ruled by Saturn, this makes sense. Anytime Saturn is involved, that person is going to be in some kind of teaching capacity, because Saturn is like the master, right? So let your child teach you. Now, Pisces parents are really good at that, because Pisces is good at receiving. So a Pisces parent is very well positioned to let the child be their teacher. And that is one way that you can help your kids build self-confidence. Let them show you things. Let them teach you things. Observe your kids, ask them questions, ask for input, ask for their input. It is so powerful when a parent asks a child, hey, I would love to get your input on this, or I would like to get your idea on this. Not only does it help the child practice communicating, it builds their self-confidence because somebody is interested in their opinion. Pisces is very good at that. Pisces is also excellent at empathizing. You don't really have to teach a Pisces parent how to show empathy, because they naturally show empathy. The thing with Pisces is sometimes they show, I don't want to say too much empathy, but they identify too much with the emotions of others, and they absorb the emotions of others too much, right? That's why we talked about protecting their energy. But Pisces naturally empathizes. The trick with Pisces is they may absorb the emotions of the child so much that they are affected. So again, you have to be very careful about protecting your energy and using your observer self when you're interacting with your kid. Empathize, validate, but I would not absorb their emotions, because that's going to affect you. And you also don't want to suggest to your kid that they are responsible somehow for the parent's emotional experience, because they're not. So Pisces parents need to make sure you have good boundaries. You need to make sure you're not engaging in escapist behavior. That is almost always a risk with Pisces, the urge to escape because life is just so overwhelming. And it is. I empathize with that. But it is easier than ever to escape. It's easier than ever to binge watch a show. It's easier than ever to game or do something compulsively, or doom scroll your phone compulsively. It's easier than ever to do that. So a little bit of escapism is fine. A little bit of, I just need to rest my brain. Yes, you must absolutely take time to rest. But if it becomes pathological, that's when it's a problem. And if you're modeling that escapist tendency for your kid, you're also teaching them to escape instead of confronting issues or managing or coping with difficulties. So be very cognizant of that. Now, as we said, Aquarius is very analytical. Pisces is very tuned into the emotions of others. Aquarius people like to weigh pros and cons. They like to approach things from a very logical point of view. Now, it may seem to you that your Aquarius child doesn't have emotions because they don't outwardly express the emotions, or they're very logical about emotions. That does not mean that they do not have emotions. It does not mean that they do not feel hurt. Pisces is good at describing the emotional experience, so you can actually help your Aquarius child in identifying and articulating and talking about those emotions. You can give them the words to do that because you have had so much more experience dealing with their emotions than they have, because you're older, you're the parent. Clearly, you have more world experience. So that is something that you can really help your Aquarius child with. Again, the Pisces parent is great at teaching and showing empathy with the kids. And that's the prime way that we teach our kids empathy, is by showing them empathy themselves. Instead of, you should not feel this way. Hey, I'm sorry you feel that way. I'm sorry that happened. It absolutely makes sense that you feel that way. Is there anything I can do for you? Right? That helps the Aquarius child to be more in touch with their own emotions and accept their own emotions instead of repress or logically argue out of their emotions. Pisces is so good at making their kids feel safe with them. A Pisces parent is a really wonderful gift. Another way that Pisces helps Aquarius is because Pisces is interested in soul-oriented pursuits and interested in finding meaning beyond kind of the superficial material things. It's interested in finding meaning in something greater than ourselves, in our earthly experiences. Sometimes Pisces does that by showing interest in music, art, things like that. It is great for the Pisces parent to share those things with the Aquarius child. Art, music, all those things. Like, especially because Aquarius is compelled to be social, they're usually pretty receptive to having those experiences. Now, we said that Pisces is very good at receiving, being in a receptive state. Pisces is also very good at showing vulnerability, and it is an excellent teacher to Aquarius regarding vulnerability. Now, it gets tricky because vulnerability is necessary in healthy relationships, especially in romantic relationships. And your relationship with your kids is one of the models that they take with them into adulthood, a model for healthy relationships, healthy adult relationships. While it is necessary to protect your energy, protect yourself, it is also necessary to learn how to be vulnerable when appropriate and when healthy. And Pisces intuitively knows how to encourage attachment with their child. So my advice here would be for you to be vulnerable with your kid when it's appropriate, certainly when they're older. And that includes acknowledging when you make mistakes and making authentic apologies. And Pisces is typically very good at that because Pisces is good at maintaining the attachment. I will say Pisces is an energy that also needs a lot of emotional validation. So make sure you are not seeking that from your kids. That's tough because as kids get older and they individuate and they start to separate from parents, there is a grieving process that happens when your kid becomes a teenager and you realize that the days of them, being a little kid and interacting with you as a little kid would, those days are gone. I'm going through that process now. Those days are gone and there is a grieving process. You have to allow yourself to grieve. So that's why I tell parents, man, soak up all that time with your kids because you will never get this time back. Them as a 5-year-old, you will never get back. Them as a 10-year-old, 12-year-old, you will never get that time back. So as they get older and start to separate, not only physically, but also emotionally from parents, maybe start to spend more time alone with their thoughts or with their peers. If you are an emotionally sensitive person like Pisces is, that may be very painful to you. And while it's developmentally appropriate, it may be very painful. So, and I acknowledge that and let yourself feel that pain. It's tough. There's definitely a process you go through with that. My point is make sure you are not trying to get emotional validation from your kids because you need to get that from someplace else, from a partner or from your friends or from family members. It is not appropriate for us to rely on our children, our minor kids, for that emotional validation, emotional comfort. That's not our kids' job. It's our job to provide that emotional validation and comfort to our kids. And that's tough if you guys are close, but that's something you need to be aware of. Part of the parent's journey is preparing for when the kids eventually leave the household. So think about what your life is going to look like when your kids are living on their own. Now, maybe your kids are very young and you don't need to think about this yet. That's fine. If your kids are middle school, high schooler, you're probably already thinking about this, what your life is going to look like. Now, yes, it's going to be very sad. I understand. It makes me sad too. But on the other hand, you may have more freedom. You may have a more open schedule. And now you can focus on your projects, things that interest you. So cultivate cultivate those interests. I'm in a mom's group right now where we are all doing that journey now, thinking about what our lives are going to look like after our kids are out of the household. What interests do we have that we want to pursue? Our goals, whether it's travel, writing, other things. What are the goals that we want to do? So we want to have plans to fill that time. Okay. So it is a very sad time, but it is also a time of opportunity when the kids leave the house. And of course, we're still going to have contact with our kids, right? But we're not going to see them on the daily. We're not going to have access to them all the time. And so, so it is helpful to think about what our lives are going to look like and plan, right? So that we're not stuck in that state of, oh, my kids aren't here now. What do I do now? Because if you don't plan for that, that has the potential to be very sad. And I don't want that for you. I want you to enjoy as much as you can that time of your life after the kids leave the household. And with Pisces, Pisces parent may have a more difficult time with that because the attachment with their kids is so strong. Now, the last main thing I want to talk about is that Pisces is an energy that needs a lot of rest because of everything we've just talked about. It is an energy that absorbs the emotional energy of other people. It is an energy that has a lot of deep empathy for others. So that all wears on us, right? That all depletes our energy. So Pisces needs rest. It tends to be more of an introverted energy. Yes, you can have Pisces who are extroverts, but the energy tends to be more internalized, more self-contained. And as we said, Aquarius is an energy that is compelled to be social. It is compelled to figure out how they can fit into society and participate in the group. So there's a little bit of a difference there because you need to honor your kids' energy and you want to make sure that they have those opportunities to be part of the group, to have be social and communicate. So make sure that they get those opportunities. At the same time, make sure that you are building in a rest time for yourself. Okay. And you explain to your kid, I understand that you want to do all this stuff. I support it. I also have needs and I need to rest. So this is how we're going to organize this, or this is how we're going to set up the calendar this week or this month. You deserve rest. You do not have to be on the go all the time. Okay. In fact, not only do you deserve rest, you need rest because you need to rest in order to, provide your best self to your family and your kids. All right. So I want to leave on that note. I'll be back very soon. If you have any questions, leave them below. If you want to check out my other videos on Pisces kids, they're right here. And I will be back. Thank you very much.